Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 13th International Conference for Teachers of English, hosted by Universidad Pedagógica Nacional Francisco Morazán. Up next, we have the presentation prepared by Ms. Stephany Cáceres Mateo and Ms. Carmen Sobalvarro Chévez. Ms. Stephany Cáceres Mateo is a language teacher from Honduras. She has been a faculty member at both the Teaching of Languages Department and the Language Center of Universidad Pedagógica Nacional Francisco Morazán. Currently, Ms. Mateo is pursuing her PhD in education at the University of Colorado Boulder, specializing in equity, bilingualism, and biliteracy. During her academic journey, Ms. Mateo had the opportunity to teach English as a foreign language in Honduras and Spanish as part of her graduate studies. She holds a Master of Arts in the teaching of English as a foreign language and a Master of Arts in languages, literatures, and cultures, with a specialization in Spanish. Ms. Mateo's research interests center around the teaching of languages from a humanistic perspective. She actively promotes equity and diversity within the language education domain. Her dedication to these principles greatly enriches her teaching approach and fosters inclusive learning environments. Ms. Carmen Sobalvarro Chévez is an English language teacher from Honduras. She has served as a faculty member at both the Languages Teaching Department and the Languages Center of the Universidad Pedagógica Nacional Francisco Morazán. Ms. Sobalvarro Chévez earned her Master of Arts in English with a specialization in TFL and TSL from Colorado State University. She had the opportunity of studying in the United States thanks to the support of Fulbright LASPAO. Throughout her career, Ms. Sobalvarro has had experience in teaching English to adults, ELL, English language learners, at various levels of language proficiency. Additionally, during her time at Colorado State University, she worked as a writing center consultant, where she gained experience in helping writers improve their skills. Her scholarly interest lied in language development and pedagogical approaches to teaching English to speakers of other languages, especially those whose first language is Spanish. She is also a strong advocate for ensuring quality education and equitable opportunities for students in her classroom. Without further ado, let the session begin.
Hello and welcome to our presentation, Pedagogies of Care Building Community. My name is Stephany Mateo and I am here with my colleague,
Carmen Sobalvarro Chévez.
We're glad and humbled to have you here with us today. For our agenda, we have the first part will be about humanizing pedagogies. The second part will be about culturally responsive teaching. And for the last part, we're gonna have some time for questions and answers. We want to let you know that we're gonna be performing some of the activities that we have here today so that you can know how to actually apply them in class. All the activities can be adapted to any age, any environment in which you are teaching, and we hope you enjoy them and you find them useful.
All right, thank you, Stephany, for that wonderful introduction. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so as mentioned by Stephany, we're going to perform some of the activities. So I would like to start with, we wish you well. And so, Stephany, I wish you well in overcoming any obstacles that come your way. Your resilience is inspiring, and I believe in your ability to conquer challenges. You're truly a person that demonstrate great strength, and I'm really happy to have you here in the classroom.
Thank you, Carmen. I also wish you well. I hope you, every day that you teach, you can learn from your students and you can grow as a professional and as a human being too. That part is very important, right? To grow not only as a professional, but as a human being, because the better we are, the better our students will be too.
Thank you very much. And I will keep your words in my mind and in my heart. All right, so as you notice, We Wish You Well is an activity designed to promote well-being, specifically in the classroom, and taking into account the challenges posed by COVID-19. This activity centers around fostering a positive and supporting atmosphere where students and educators come together to share their hopes, aspirations, and positive affirmations.
I think it's an activity that you can do as a warm up once a week if you want, once every 2 weeks. But the important part is that you tell something that can motivate your students, or they can tell their classmates something that can motivate them.
And considering also that after the pandemic's impact on mental health and emotional resilience, this activity serves as a powerful tool to help rebuild connection, strengthen relationship, and cultivate a sense of belonging in the classroom.
I agree, totally.
Yeah, it also empowers students to acknowledge their value and well-being and the well-being of their peers, therefore enhancing their social and emotional development, which are essential components for a holistic and thriving educational experience. As you mentioned earlier, wishing you not only growing as a person, as a professional, it is also important to grow as a person, and taking care of each other is important too.
That's right. Especially because we always want to lower students' affective filter, right? Especially after pandemic, students are stressed, more anxious because they're not used to being in the classroom, right? And things have changed. So by incorporating these type of activities, you help students lower their affective filter, which helps to learn languages better. So let's move on to the other activity that we have. And this is, can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, thank you. This is the mood meter. This is adapted, right? So you could see if you type in on Google, right, the search bar, mood meter, you'll find different versions of this. But you can see that here, horizontally, we have the level of pleasantness, and vertically, we have the level of energy that your students have. So if you see the red one, in the red one, you can see how high our energy is, right? And is less pleasant than the green one, right? So this is like the most dangerous part we could see. And then in the blue one, we have low energy and low levels of pleasantness, right? And then we have here in the yellow one, high levels of energy and high levels of pleasantness, right? In the green one is like the most one, like the best one. So you can, this is kind of a spectrum. So you can ask your students to pick one of those adjectives that we have here so they can reflect on how they feel at the moment. And they can also share with us anything that they're thinking at the moment, or anything that they want to share with us. For example, I can say that right now I feel blessed, and I also feel I feel at ease with myself, right? So my levels of energy are not that, like, kind of in the middle of the level of energy, but they are, in terms of pleasantness, they're really high. How about you, Carmen?
Um, so today, I am grateful for a busy but productive day. It's been a long day,
Mm-hmm.
but the sense of achievement is really amazing, and I am very happy for all the progress I made and the things I got done. And I hope to have more days like this.
Excellent. So you can think about levels of energy in different forms. You can think about how much this energy makes you move, for example, or how much this energy makes you feel overwhelmed, right? You can think about energy in many ways. This is an excellent activity that could be used as a warm-up activity, as a transition activity during your classes. But the idea is that your students can self-reflect, right, and have a sense of how they are feeling at the moment. Sometimes that's really difficult to do, right? Sometimes we're just angry or we're just excited, but we don't know why, right? So this is a good way to start giving names to those feelings and emotions.
Shall we move?
Yes, let's move on.
All right. So talking about humanizing pedagogies, it refers to educational practices that aim to build meaningful and compassionate relationship between teachers and students. These pedagogies center on values such as love, humility, and faith, fostering an atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding in the classroom. The goal is to create an inclusive and empowering learning environment where students feel seen, heard, and valued as individuals with unique experiences and perspectives. So basically, considering student as a whole, not only recipients of knowledge.
Yeah, and here we also mention Freire, right? Because um, we know about this educación bancaria
Mhm.
from his well-known book, Las Pedagogías del Oprimido, and we know, right, that students cannot be just sitting in a table, in a chair, in front of a desk, doing anything but paying attention. But as you said, like, if we try to see our students as a whole, holistically, considering their emotions, their fonts of knowledge, the things that they bring, experiences that they bring from home, um, knowledge that includes um, not only cultural knowledge, but also linguistic knowledge, right? We know that even though in Honduras, the majority of the population is Spanish speaking only, we have different ethnicities and students that come from different parts of the country that speak Miskito or Garifuna, right? Or other languages, and that we have to embrace that in our classrooms. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the 5 principles. There are different principles depending on different authors. We adapted this from Freire, Bell Hooks, and Salazar. The first one will be building relationship and community, as we have mentioned, right? With humanizing pedagogics, we want to emphasize the importance of building positive relationships with students, and not only with like between teacher and students, but also students and students, right? And to foster a sense of community in the classroom. Um, this may include, for example, opportunities for students to connect with their culture, right? With respect. We have talked about this before, Carmen, and we know that when students come from different backgrounds, there are sometimes tensions, right, in terms of culture, even within one country. So we know that students need to build respect, empathy, support, right, and to have a good learning environment, especially again for learning languages. So that's the first principle. The second one will be valuing students' experiences and perspectives, as we have mentioned, valuing their funds of knowledge, their background, linguistic and cultural knowledge that they bring to the classroom, and also have students as active people in the classroom, right? Students can also contribute to the content of the class, right? If they know something that you don't know something, if they know something that you don't know, ask them, right? And make them part of that learning process.
Also, I think having them sharing their experiences and perspective, it's important because that provides diversity in the classroom,
That's
saying
right.
I come from this place where I experienced this. So by doing so, the rest of the class can have real contact with different cultures and different ways of living, for example. And so I think that that's very important because that's connected with the first principle, building relationships and community. So by having them sharing and listening to each other, then they will have a community within the classroom when they can share in a safe environment.
Yeah. And talking about what we said about Freire, we know that students need to reflect, right, and to develop critical thinking in the classroom. How can we do that? Like questioning everything, right? Reflecting on everything that we read in the textbooks, challenging ideas. Um, by doing this, we can create spaces for students to say whatever their opinions are. Sometimes it's hard because there are hierarchies in the classroom. So sometimes they are afraid to talk because they know that your teacher figure, it's in a higher position. So by um, letting them know, right, that they can critique in a constructive way, and they can reflect on what we are discussing in class, we are also promoting uh, a good learning environment.
And also, I think that we can do that in the classroom by bringing some activities um, to start um, promoting this reflection. Like if we have students that are shy, for example, we can have activities where they can write down what they think so they are not exposed to the rest of the class, and like progressively having them sharing orally what they think about something, just to make sure that everyone's has an opportunity to share, even though they're not very communicative, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Our fourth principle is fostering autonomy and empowerment of students. I think this is very important, especially with children, right? When we work with children, we sometimes encounter students in higher levels of education that they need the teacher to be there with them all the time, right? Maybe because um, we teachers haven't done a good job with this fourth principle, which is fostering autonomy, right? And empowerment with students. So let's create an environment, opportunities, let's give them opportunities for them to set goals, their own goals, right? To take ownerships of their own learning, and to provide them with the tools and resources for them to succeed, right, in the language learning process. How can we do that? Well, if we think about the Common European Framework, for example, there are different self-evaluations that students can make so that they can start reflecting on their own progress. Not only that, but we can create and find also on the internet and in books many other surveys that students can take so that they can start reflecting, right, on how they are doing in terms of their learning process. So that ownership of their own learning, it's very important. And the last one, creating a safe and supportive learning environment. Well, this is, I think, self-explanatory. Um, and it is like a combination of the other four principles, right?
Yeah, totally agree. All right, let's move on to the next section, in which I'm going to share a little bit about the history of humanizing pedagogies. So this way of teaching highlights the importance of ethics and affection in educational settings, particularly in the context of connecting with diverse communities. As we think of Honduras, we may think that it's homogeneous. However, as Stephany mentioned before, students come from all over the place. They come from Olancho, they come from Santa Barbara, which are very distant. And of course, culture, it's different in those places. So the ethics of affection refers to the caring and empathetic approach that teacher can adopt towards their students. It involves building meaningful relationships with learners based on trust, respect, and understanding, which I consider all of them very important if we want to really help them become professionals that care about the society in general. So when teachers practice the ethics of affection, they create a positive and supporting learning environment where students feel valued and empowered to engage in their language learning journey. Connecting this with communities and in the field of TESOL, humanizing pedagogies means acknowledging and embracing the linguistic and cultural diversity of learners' backgrounds by recognizing the languages and cultural practices of students. Teachers can create a more inclusive and culturally responsive learning space.
Okay, so let's move on. We're gonna talk about authentic affection and well-being. And this fact is very interesting, right? The students spend almost 14% of their time in school year. I thought it was more than that, but 14% of their time is not like that much, right? So when they are with us at school, we have to make the best of that time, right? Together. So we have to try to include or be willing to talk about their lives, right? Their emotions, how they're doing at home, right? Things that they want to share with us. Teachers do not need to be mental health professionals to incorporate well-being into their practices. And I think that's something that we really need to consider, that sometimes we don't know how to react because we think like we cannot treat them, for example, because we're not professional psychologists or, you know, therapists or anything. But we can include activities for well-being in the classroom without necessarily being professionals in that field, right? Just activities that can help us connect with them.
And I think that these practices are very important, taking into account the current situation of our country, where some students may not be able to satisfy all the physiological needs. So I know it's hard, but maybe we can find some ways in which we can help each other in the classroom, like students and teachers, to secure that aspect, or try to provide an environment where they feel safe, that they feel protected, so they can, escalate into that hierarchy, and then they can develop other aspects of their themselves.
Yeah. Actually, yes, we have this pyramid here, and we have that the first level is the psychological one. The next one level is safety, love, and belonging, sorry, esteem, and self-actualization. So we have to help students get to the tip of the mountain, let's say, to achieve their goals too. And why not? If we want to build community with them, and if we want to create connections with our students, why don't we share a little bit of our own experiences too, right? So that they can see that we are also human beings, and that we share more than what they think.
Yeah, totally agree. Right, so moving on. So here are some examples of teacher actions. Teachers can serve as models of affection in the classroom by engaging in specific actions that promote a caring and supporting learning environment. These actions include co-constructing new information with students. This means, like, instead of only presenting information in a top-down manner where teacher is the one sharing the information, teachers can collaborate with students in the learning process. This involves encouraging dialogues and discussions, inviting students to share their ideas, and valuing their contribution to the classroom. By co-constructing knowledge, teachers show that they value and respect the students' perspectives, and more specifically, the students' input, like what they provide to the classroom. The next action is creating spaces for students' choices and voices. In here, teacher foster a sense of agency and empowerment by providing opportunities for students to make choices in their learning, whether it is choosing topics for projects, or choosing group activities, or expressing their opinions. Students here are encouraged to have a voice in the classroom. This inclusivity and validation of students' autonomy help build positive relationship between teachers and learning. Of course, everything should happen with respect, like students and teachers must provide their opinions, but respecting each other. I think that that's very important to emphasize. The next action is demonstrating vulnerability. So in here, teacher, as you mentioned, Stephany, they can share or they can show their human side or their experiences, what they have experienced, what they have overcome by sharing their own also challenges and learning moments. I think that make them vulnerable, like saying, oh, I didn't know this, thank you for sharing, or I want to learn more about this. I think that that provides students or the class with a sense of belonging and openness where they can share what they know without being scared of they're gonna be corrected or anything. Also, this openness can encourage students to feel comfortable and safe in sharing their own thoughts and feelings. So the next one is encouraging movement. So this has to do with incorporating physical movement in the learning process. And I bet that what comes to your mind when you listen to movement, it's TPR. So you can implement some activities that promote movement in the classroom. You can include something like group work, role playing, or kinesthetic learning to make the classroom experience enjoyable and interactive, especially in those classes that start at 7 a.m. where students are kind of sleepy a little bit. And the last one, actively listening, paying attention to students' ideas, concerns, and questions. These demonstrate that teachers truly care about their students' well-being and academic growth. I know that having a lot of students in the classroom can be a challenge. Sometimes you get exhausted. So I think like finding ways to have students sharing with the rest of the class, but making sure that these activities, that within these activities, both the teacher and student are actually paying attention to what they say, what they share. So that the activities are meaningful, not only sharing just to share, and that they are not, the rest of the class or this and the teacher is not actually paying attention to what the student says. Like you can even provide some input after the student's participation, like saying, oh, that's great, can you elaborate more about your what you like to do in your free time, or that's a very interesting hobby, for example, just saying or demonstrating that you are actually paying attention to your students. So by implementing all of these actions or these actions, teachers not only model affection, but also cultivate a classroom culture that values collaboration, inclusivity, and emotional support. These practices can enhance the learning experience, promote positive relationship between the students and teacher students, and contribute to students' overall well-being and academic success.
Excellent. So these are some of the rituals that we could also do with our students, because remember that connections in the outside build connections in the inside. So the main goal of these rituals is connection. Connections wire the brain for impulse control and willingness. So some of the things that we can do with our students is to always have eye contact with them, right? That's very, very important because of what we have talked about during this presentation, hierarchies, right? So we want to burn down that bridge between the teacher and the student. And by having eye contact, that's one of the things that we can do to burn it down. The other one is touch, as you mentioned, right? kinesthetic activities. TPR can help us a lot. Um, and well, sometimes students don't want to touch other students or the teacher, but again, movement can also help. Presence, to be present as their teacher, right? To learn about them, not only in terms of content, but personally as well. And playful situations. Bring as many communicative activities as possible so they can enjoy learning languages. Okay, let's move on. And to finish with this part, we have this game that you can also do with your students. It's called Give Me Five. And this game is important because at the same time that we're creating a playful situation, we're also drilling vocabulary. In this case, the name of our fingers, right? So this one is called Give Me Five, and it's about telling a positive story about your day. So in the next slide, we're going to see more or less what are the things that we can mention for each of our fingers. The first one is our pinky. And with that, we can tell something that we're good at. With the ring finger, something that we love. With the middle finger, something that we are excited for. With the pointer finger, something that you like to do. And the thumb will be something that you are worried about. So maybe, Carmen, you can help us creating your story
Sure
with your
thing.
fingers.
Yeah, so here's my hand. Something I'm good at, reading. I really like reading, so I think I'm good at it. Something I love. I really love learning new things. Middle finger is something I'm excited for. So I'm excited about December because it's when I spend more time with my family. So I'm very excited for that. Pointer finger, something I like to do. I really like hiking. So whenever I have the time, I go and spend time with nature. And something I'm worried about, it may sound crazy, but time. I really want to do many things, but I'm kind of worried about time. So that would be me.
Okay, thank you, Carmen. We're gonna move on to the second stage of this presentation. This is gonna be a little bit faster than the other one because we have already talked about what pedagogies of care are and the importance to build community with our students. So for this part, we're gonna continue talking, right, a little bit about culturally responsive teaching and the things that we can do to promote community and a good environment in the classroom. Let's move on. For this, we're gonna use this acronym JEDI, which is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And we know that culturally responsive teaching promotes pluralism in language, literacies, and culture through respect and celebration of diversity from a socio-historical view. Culturally responsive teaching empowers students and promotes academic learning, independent metacognitive awareness, and resilience. We want our students to not only learn languages in the classroom, but to be independent, to be active learners, right? And to also be aware of what they're learning, be aware of the way they are using the language, and to be resilient, especially because after pandemic, as we have been mentioning, our feelings and emotions are there all the time, right? So we want to make sure that our students can overcome challenges, right? that they don't feel overwhelmed all the time, that they don't feel that if they fail something, they won't be able to overcome that situation. We want them to be resilient. So that's really important to consider. And to continue a little bit more with what are those activities or those techniques that we could use in the class to promote those culturally responsive situations. This is a good example of it. This is called This Is Me. This is an activity that you can do on Padlet. It's a map. I'm going to show it to you right now, but this is an example that I did with a group of students from Honduras and from the US. It was an exchange program completely online. But even if you are face to face with your students, you can take the time to do this with them, either as homework or in the classroom if you have the resources to do it, right? This is to build rapport and to get to know students better. So if you go to Padlet, so maybe Carmen, can you allow me to share, please? Are we ready?
Yeah, you can share now.
I can't. Oh, there you go. Thank you. All right, so let me share with you. This is my Padlet, right? And can you see it, Carmen?
Yes.
So
Yes, I can.
this is a map in which you can drop some pins. As you can see, as I told you, I had students from the US and I had students from Honduras, right? So let me show you some of the examples. Let's say this one, for example. I asked them, right, to pick a place from the city they are from or the department they are from, right? And to put a picture or a video or something like that that can describe the place and write something about it, right? So this is an example. Maybe Carmen can share it or read it.
Yeah, it says El Cacao, La Boquita, Zacapa, Santa Bárbara. Hello, my name is Juni Rivera. I live in Santa Bárbara, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Can you go down? Santa Bárbara has interesting places to know. I invite you to know a natural jewel called Cacao. Is a famous place that is located in the municipality of Zacapa, Santa Bárbara. It's a natural waterfall. The water is emerald green. Come and enjoy this natural beauty.
Yeah, thank you, Carmen. So as you can see, we have different things, not only food and not only places, but also food, because we wanted those American students to get to know Honduras better, right? So the only thing that you have to do is to click here, just drag a pin, whatever you want to put it, you choose. And then here you have the option to upload a picture or to put a link of a video and then write whatever you want to say about your picture or your video, and then you publish it. So this is a great way to get to know the places where your students are from or their culture, right? We never know.
I think that you can also adapt this to other aspects of language teaching, like where they would like to go or where they have been. You know, there are you just need to be creative and adapt all the resources, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's continue because we have more activities, and maybe we don't have enough time. We won't have enough time to talk about all of them, so we're just gonna mention some, right? You can just mention the next one, Carmen, so we can move on.
Yeah. So this activity, it's called Layers of My Cultural Self. So this is an activity that highlights the multiple dimensions of our identities. It addresses the importance of self-definition and challenges stereotypes. Something that I would like to point out that when we think about identities, we may think about different aspects. So it may be overwhelming at the very beginning, having students share about their identities. So maybe pointing out that identities can be categorized in different ways, but there are two types: those that we choose and those that are imposed to us. The ones that we choose, these identities are the ones that we consciously adopt or construct based on our experiences, belief, and personal preferences. For example, professional identities, religious identities, political identities, hobbies, and interests. And the ones that are imposed are those that are assigned to us by society or external forces, often based on characteristics such as our race, gender, nationality, or socioeconomic status. So these identities are not chosen by us, but are imposed upon us by I don't know, cultural expectation, systemic structure. So some examples, as mentioned, nationality, citizenship, social class, and identity. So it is important to acknowledge that identities are complex, and those are influenced by external forces and also imposed aspects that are given to us. So we can have students sharing about themselves, but being careful of just saying you can share what you feel comfortable about, and then like trying to leave that observation clear, I guess. So the steps: students place their names in the center circle. Then they write an important aspects of their identity in each satellite circle remaining. They share a story about time where they were proud to be identified with one of their identifiers. They name a stereotype associated with one of the groups with which they identify, that is not consistent with who they are. And I think this is very important to point out, because they may not feel comfortable to be called this and that. So by pointing it out, like, yeah, here is the thing. Sometimes people refer to me as this, but I am not very comfortable because that's not me.
Okay, the next activity is very similar to this one, so I'm just gonna briefly talk about it. This one's called My Personal and Social Identity. And this is kind of a worksheet that we can give students. And in the inner circle, we have parts of our identity that is personal, right? Like, for example, things that we like, books that we like, food that we like, etc. And the outer one is something that, as Carmen mentioned, right, something that we don't choose, part of our identity that we don't choose, like race, ethnicity, etc. There will be some things that students won't feel comfortable sharing, and that's fine, right? They can just fill in the things that they are comfortable talking about. And then in the middle, we can also ask them to write 3 adjectives that describe themselves. Okay, this is another activity, and let's move on. We have another activity that it's similar in terms of culture. It's just talking about things that we would like people to know about us, right? The objective is to reflect about your own culture before asking others about theirs. So it's like we have a link here if you like to take a look at it, but it's like a questionnaire, right? And first about you, and then the idea is that you can stand up and go to another person and ask those questions, and then you compare your answers to those answers of your peers.
Yeah. All right, so continuing with the activities. This is called What Makes You You, and in Spanish, mi sopa, mis raíces. So basically it's to celebrate our roots. So in here students can share, can work with their families at home, and they can share about different aspects of their lives that build up that that make that soup, basically.
Like part of their identity, right? Again.
Yeah. Like who's their family, the languages spoken, favorite vacation, like anything that makes them them.
Yeah, and we want to share these pictures with you. These are pictures from students of one of our colleagues that works in a bilingual school in Denver, Colorado. So she shared these beautiful pictures of Mi Sopa, Mis Raíces with us. And we wanted to share it with you as well.
Yeah, so as you can see, there are different aspects of students' identity that it's represented through images or through drawings or through like some words that explain who they are.
Yeah. And the last two activities that we have are two beautiful poems. These are templates, actually. We have the Just Because poem, that's the first one. And the template is just the part that says just because, and then students fill in the blanks, right? So just because, these are examples of my students at UPNFM. And we have an example I'm going to briefly read. It says, just because I am thin doesn't mean I eat less. Doesn't mean I am poor. Doesn't mean I am healthy. Doesn't mean I don't have food to eat. And then the good thing is that, well, this one doesn't have it, but the last line would be to break the stereotype. So maybe we have, oh yeah, in this first one, we have it. It says, just because I am a boy doesn't mean I am a cheater. Doesn't mean I am lazy. Doesn't mean I am dirty. I try my best. So that last word, that last line is telling you what that student really is, right? Not the stereotypes that they have. So this is a good example also to share about our identity and also to break stereotypes.
Yeah, thank you. I think that that's a very nice activity because you can teach students also aspects about writing poems.
Oh yeah, of course, alliteration, with like what are the parts of a poem, to like many things that you can teach in terms of language, in terms of content, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're talking about their identity.
All right, so the next poem, it's I Am From. So in here also we have a template where there are different part of ourselves that we share, and the template, which which we don't have it here, but the template provides.
I think we're gonna share it. I think we're gonna share it. You're right.
Yeah. So in here, the in terms of language, the poem asks the writer to incorporate specific aspects of language, which again can help students to learn more about languages while also sharing about their identities. Stephany, I don't know if you would like to share.
This one was by George L. Lyon, and this is like the original one, and I put mine here. One that I did just to present at a class. The template, it's for example, it says I am from, and then it tells you what's the word that you're gonna need. For example, a fresh produce, or an adjective describing a place that you love, something like that, right? So as you can see, my first line was, I am from the Banana Republic, from the coffee and the green, humid landscapes. That's what I imagined at first. And then it gets more, like, it can get as personal as you want and as personal as students want. If they don't want to talk about details about their families, for example, they can just talk about details about the country in general or their town in general. I remember stories from Carne Fresca and La Sucia, which, like, Carne Fresca was something very personal from my family, right? There used to be a man walking the streets, and they called him Carne Fresca, so they would say, come inside, Stephany, right? Or Carne Fresca is gonna take you. So yeah, those are very personal memories and experiences that I could bring to life when I was writing this. So you can definitely use it with your students. And as Carmen said, always connecting it to any grammar point, but also for them to express what they're feeling at the time and to tell us a little bit about who they are.
Are you going to share the template?
Sure. Let me share, please.
Sure. Oops.
Oh, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So the title, I am from, and then you have to just fill in the blanks. I am from, and then specific ordinary item, from, product name and product name. So from coffee and bananas, for example. I am from, and then home description, an adjective, and a sensory detail, because remember, right, we want to appeal to our readers' senses too. I am from a plant, a flower, natural item, etc. And then here we have like the original poem and another example from another teacher, right? We're gonna try to share that link with you all so you can have it too. But basically, those are the activities that we have for today. So for our conclusions, Carmen.
Yeah. So as for conclusion, humanizing pedagogies recognize our humanity. Cultural responsive teaching celebrates diversity. And so the combination of both are important to promote in the classroom, because education does not change the world. education changes people, and people are the ones that change the world. So just keeping that in mind.
Thank you so much for having us today. Thank you for sharing this information with us, Carmen. Your experience is very valuable, and I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to work with you today.
Yeah, thank you also to share your ideas, and of course your experience as a teacher provides another perspective to this presentation. So thank you very much, and thank you the ones that attended this presentation. I hope you find it useful, and let's see what things we can incorporate into our classroom.
Bye.